I have a challenge for you. Squeeze your hands together as hard as you can for 4 minutes. 4 long minutes. Go on, I'll time you. So a few years ago, and my fellow jurors and I had just decided that the defendant was guilty of causing the death of her spouse. That trial had stayed with me ever since it started. It was my constant companion. All those gruesome sights and sounds of death and lying, dysfunction. It was there when I went to bed, when I woke up, when I played with my kids. It grabbed at my heels as I walked up the stairs at night. But to be honest, the image that really stuck with me the most wasn't even from the testimony. Early on, we had been bused to the house where it all happened. We got to walk in one by one. And as I entered that small, dark kitchen, I had let my eyes adjust from that bright autumn sun. And I looked down the stairs where it had happened. But then I realized I wasn't alone. Standing in the corner was this man, not saying anything, just scowling at me. Really unhappy I was there, unhappy I was reminding him of the trauma that had occurred in his house. And what bothered me most was by that time in the trial, when I looked around at my fellow jurors, we all shared that same haunted look. Keep squeezing. Our task that morning in the jury room was to determine whether it was manslaughter, whether she acted impulsively in the heat of passion, or murder in the first degree, which involves some sort of premeditation. And the judge had said premeditation doesn't just mean planning ahead, but it could also mean the ability to stop and reconsider. And I think, frankly, most of us that morning thought it was manslaughter. There's just so much sadness, so much abuse. And you could see how it happened. Your spouse comes home from working all night. It's dark, it's cold, it's rainy, the house is small, your child's fussy, and you start arguing, because there's a lot to argue about. But there's also a history of physical violence, and so maybe it escalates a little bit, and then you find yourself at the top of those same stairs, looking down at your spouse. And do you rush down and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, let me help you up, you okay?" But you know that what you just did can't be taken back. And you know what you just did can be used against you. So you have another choice. And maybe you see this as an opportunity to be free. Halfway there. As foreperson of that jury, I had set a ground rule early on that we weren't going to take a vote on the verdict until we'd gone over all the evidence again together. You see, this trial had been around the block through 2 previous cases. They had kneaded and molded and refined the narrative to the point where I felt like we were watching a well-rehearsed play often. So step by step, we, the jurors, went through all of our memories, all of their interpretations of the evidence, and piece by piece, we put together a new narrative that, frankly, to me, felt more real than anything we had heard yet. And that morning, several jurors challenged us to squeeze our hands together as hard as we could for 4 minutes, 4 long minutes. You see, that's how long we had been told it takes to strangle somebody. 240 seconds. Is that time enough to step back from anger, despair, and consider what you're doing? 60 long breaths. Is that sufficient time to think, maybe I should stop squeezing this person I loved or once loved? Was it time enough for her to stop and reflect? Was it time enough for me to stop and reflect? Soon thereafter, I poked my head out of that juror's room and told the court officer we were finished. "Really," he said, "you have a verdict after 2 mistrials?" And I was nervous as we walked down that long hallway. I was proceeding into the courtroom past the cameras and the reporters. I was nervous when I handed that sheet to the judge with our verdict on it. She looked down, looked at me, nodded, and asked how we, the jury, found the defendant. My heart was pounding. when I looked that defendant in the eye for the first time that entire trial. But then I thought of that choice she had made, and I thought of those 4 long minutes. And I said to her with resolve that we, the jury, find her guilty of murder in the first degree.